Miller rolls right, throws left. He's got a man open downfield. Rod Smith with the catch at the 10 and into the touchdown. 51-yard strike. Miller to Smith for 6.
Braxton Miller, the Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year and a Heisman finalist. He was a huge recruit that Ohio State brought in years ago, Jerry, and he's just one of many they bring into Columbus.
You know, guys, there's a saying in coaching that emphasizes the importance about recruiting. It goes like this. It's not the X's and the O's, but the Jimmies and the Joes. The big question is, what about the programs that have both? Clearly, Ohio State is one of those programs. I sat with Director of Player Personnel, Mark Pantoni, and talked about his part of the equation. Mark, you're Ohio State's Director of Player Personnel, and part of your responsibilities is to oversee the administrative part of recruiting. How does all this start? What's the first step in the recruiting process?
We use all resources necessary to initially find kids' names, whether using the recruiting websites, through when the coaches go out recruiting in the spring or in the contact periods, they come back with lists of names from the high schools they visit, and then we take that name and then we go from there and get all the information necessary we can about the kid and get the film and start the evaluation process.
Take us through what a prospect goes through from the time, whether it's Ohio State or another school, decides to recruit that player. What's that prospect's life like as it relates to recruiting every week?
Yeah, it's obviously overwhelming for them, for most of them. For the ones who don't like recruiting, they're the ones you see make verbal commitments much earlier in the process to kind of end things. But you know, they're getting bombarded with letters, phone calls, emails, etc., from 20 to 50 colleges every day. They're going to take their visits, usually to the 5 or 10 schools that they are most interested in, and try to whittle it down through that process. And then at some point, they're going to narrow it down to be able to make their decision.
Let's do hypotheticals here. Let's say you want to sign a class of 25 the first Wednesday of February. How many names do you start with?
The initial board that we start with will probably range between 500 to 700 prospects, a huge number of names who we have to sift through. The kids in our prime time areas who we really need to focus on, and then is there a tie to Ohio or Ohio State from kids maybe in California or Texas or Florida who farther out that, hey, let's give it a shot because there's some sort of tie.
When in the calendar year is it down to a manageable number, would you say?
I think by after spring recruiting, when coaches go out on the road, they're watching practices, they're going into the high schools, they're talking with the teachers. At Ohio State, for an out-of-state kid, we'd like to get them on campus by spring or summer. And if they don't make it on campus by those points, our odds of getting them are going significantly down. So if they're going to be willing to make the investment to pay out of pocket to come visit here, we now know that's real, and we're going to go as hard as we can after them to go get them.
Is that situation where you can't pay for a prospect until, is it September 1 of their senior year?
Correct.
Is that still the rule?
Correct.
When people talk about recruiting a home visits, the coach is going into the prospect's home. Purpose of the home visits?
The head coach gets one off-campus visit, so you have to strategize when you want to use that, whether it's early, late, wait till the very end. And so there's a lot of thought process involved in when Coach Meyer is going to go use that home visit. And really the assistant coaches are kind of like the setup men in baseball, and then Coach Myers, he's the closer.
Right.
He's Mariano Rivera going in there and to win the game and get the kid to realize this is the best place for him.
Give us some reasons why you'd bring Coach Meyer in early, in the middle, or late. Give us some scenarios.
Sure. We had an example this year, a kid we signed, Von Bell, out of Georgia. He hadn't been up here in a few months, so we thought we were losing some traction there. So we decided to send Coach Meyer in December at a state championship game, knowing full well that we would have to go the whole month of January, you know, with other big-time programs sending in their head coaches at the end. But we felt we had to gain that momentum at that time, and at the end of the day, it paid off because the kid came up here on a visit, realized this was the most comfortable place for him, and his most opportunity to succeed was Ohio State.